Ten Sleep, Wyoming, a history-rich area surrounded by thriving nature and blue skies. For centuries, Ten Sleep and the surrounding area have seen countless stories regarding conflicts, battles, and survival, with each story adding its own patch into the quilt that is Ten Sleep's culture. With so much variety, however, it is almost certainly bound to be changed. Famous for its unique name, the story of Ten Sleep is already quite well known among the town and tourists. According to local legend, the name originated from a Native American term referring to the distance, measured in sleeps, between camps located near Casper, Wyoming and Bridger, Montana. The town was 10 sleeps away from each of the camps. As interesting as these stories are, there is so much more to Ten Sleep than just its name. Across the region, petroglyphs and pictographs can be seen on cliff faces and near ancient trails, giving us a glimpse into our world centuries ago. This artwork tends to be drastically overlooked as they are far more than just pictures, but a unique way to tell stories. While this artwork is a fascinating look into the past, the trails used for centuries connecting cultures is what truly shines for Ten Sleep, as the entire town was just a pit stop along a useful trade and migration route. The large main route Ten Sleep was built on ran from the Tongue and Powder rivers to far past the Red Desert in South Wyoming. This route connected other trails to Yellowstone, Laramie, Thermopolis, and beyond, strengthening trade and movement across the Great Plains. The trails of the Bighorn Basin also span far older than you may think. Throughout the Bighorn Basin, extensive history can be seen not only on the trails, but in various sites all over the region. One of these ancient sites can be seen not too far from home, Warland, Wyoming. Excavated under archaeologist George Friesen, the Colby Mammoth Kill Site is an incredible anomaly right outside our town, with remains dating back to around 11,000 years ago. Further analyzation and excavations of the site have indicated the frequency of its use over time, with data supporting the idea of recurring use of the area, and other evidence showing how remains were preserved. The people responsible for the site were an ancient group of people called Clovis hunters. These Clovis hunters lived a seasonal migratory lifestyle, moving up and down the mountains as weather varied. A bit later in history, you can see the formation of Native American tribes, which also have extensive archaeological remains. George Friesen, a Ten Sleep local who also excavated the Colby Mammoth Kill Site, has helped reveal many buffalo jumps and kill sites across the region, bringing back life to sites such as Glenrock, Ruby, Muddy Creek, and other important hunting grounds. George Friesen has been a significant contributor towards uncovering these ancient remains and has revolutionized analyzation of these sites, being able to determine just from a pile of bones if the animals were killed all at once or separately over a prolonged period of time. Bones are not the only things being uncovered, as there have also been tools, shelters, weapons, and other artifacts. Native American tribes have thrived in the Bighorn Basin for thousands of years, surviving and thriving off the land around them. Unfortunately, conflict between settlers was inevitable following the westward expansion of the United States, and with settlers traveling the Bozeman Trail in search of gold, they weren't letting anything get in their way. One of the first conflicts resulting from this was the Sand Creek Massacre of November 29, 1864. This one-sided surprise attack against a peaceful village caused the death of around 150 to 200 Cheyenne and Arapaho civilians, most of them women, children, and elderly.
2 years before the Fetterman fight, there was the Sand Creek massacre in Colorado of Black Kettle's people and the Cheyenne, and so that had a big effect on the people and the tribes, that they have to come forward and stop this wave of that's coming in here. And so right from there you have a chronological chain of events that happen from year to year, some only 6 months apart, that go down in history as major battles, like from Sand Creek.
The tension resulting from this battle only strained relations further, leading to more conflict and eventually a battle. In December of 1866, one of the most infamous battles in Wyoming occurred near Fort Phil Kearny near Banner. The Fetterman fight was a baited ambush against U.S. Army troops by a confederated group of Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho men. The bait was a small band of natives on horseback, including Lakota warrior Crazy Horse, who were in sight of Captain William J. Fetterman and his company.
So we go 1865, and then we go into December 21st, 1866 for the Fetterman fight. And that's where we're at today. It happened on the solstice, the first day of winter, the shortest day of the year. And again, to the north of us where we're at by the fort, there's a place called Lodge Trail Ridge over here. And the decoys went to work again, and they lured soldiers over that ridge where an ambush and trap waited for them.
Upon seeing the vulnerable band, Fetterman led his troops in pursuit. Unfortunately for Captain Fetterman, upon following them, they were led into an ambush of 300 armed native forces. In intense close combat, all 81 Army soldiers were killed, leaving the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors victorious. The following summer, a large group of various tribes made attacks around Fort Phil Kearny, attacking livestock and workers to deplete their numbers. They eventually surrounded a supply column of soldiers hauling equipment with large wagons. This sudden ambush led the outnumbered soldiers with their more advanced repeating rifles to take cover behind the wagons and hold out for hours against the natives, forcing them to retreat and resulting in the U.S. victory, the first of many to come. This battle was a critical turning point for Native Americans, as U.S. technology and morale was increasing. With these increased forces and drive, nothing was stopping the U.S.'s progression.
So they had a new Springfield repeating arms rifles, and the warriors had never seen these before. It was a brand new weapon, and they could not figure out how these guns could just keep firing like that.
Alongside these major battles were many different treaties that slowly chipped away native land and culture, with many of them not agreed upon between both parties. These enforced treaties were broken by the United States many times, regardless of the fact that they were not agreed upon in the first place. One of the most infamous and impactful of these broken treaties was the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. This treaty entailed the relocation of the Lakota Sioux tribe to a new reservation, which would provide them with benefits and programs if they followed the guidelines. The U.S. in part agreed to abandon the 3 Powder River forts and promptly closed the Bozeman Trail. The treaty held with minimal conflicts for a few years, but tension began to brew following the discovery of gold in the Black Hills, which was land reserved for the Lakota Sioux tribe under the previously established Fort Laramie Treaty. It didn't take long before civilian gold miners and militant forces would break that treaty, the only they were in favor of. In 1874, General George A. Custer led an expedition of gold miners and opportunists through Lakota Sioux territory in search of gold. General Custer then called in support from the U.S. Army to protect them from possible conflict. The Army agreed, but attempted to stay within treaty guidelines, which ultimately became redundant, as miners began to move into the territory regardless, still demanding protection from the Army. Tensions were rising even further, following an ultimatum made by the Commissioner of Indian Affairs that entailed that all Lakota report to a reservation by the end of January 1876, or else they will be labeled as hostiles.
The U.S. said, if all these hostiles don't report into their agencies, their respective agencies, by January 30th, 1876, which is 6 months before the Little Bighorn Battle, they are going to be declared hostile, and we're going to go to war with them.
To the Army's discontent, the Lakota Sioux remained vigilant for their land and didn't plan to give it up that easily. At this point, tensions were spiraling out of control, and battle was inevitable. Prepared for this, the Army set up multiple battalions surrounding Lakota territory, one of them being the 7th Cavalry Regiment. Led by General Custer, the 7th Cavalry Regiment had found themselves in direct engagement with a confederated group of around 2,000 warriors, Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho backgrounds. Following this encounter, the 5 units under Custer's command were entirely wiped out, with many more U.S. casualties across the other companies. The battalion had suffered a harrowing loss, leading to Major Marcus Renewal to withdraw his troops and escape past the Little Bighorn River. This major victory for the Lakota, however, was unfortunately short-lived. Following the defeat deemed embarrassing, the Army and government formed a large-scale campaign and immediately began forcefully removing civilian Lakota, Arapaho, and Northern Cheyenne from their homes and forcing them on reservations. The sacred Lakota territory of the Black Hills was taken without compensation and promptly used for mining.
So the tribes are jubilant in that, but only less than a year later, this happened June 25th, 1876. So from June to the next April, May, 1877, they all surrendered.